I always like it when there's lots of people, obviously. It has atmosphere. It's also nice and friendly. And don't worry about catching stuff like colds and flus and stuff like that, because when you have a happy mind, you don't tend to get sick. It's interesting that it's been a long time since I've been to see a doctor. Been very healthy. I told someone the other day it's usually doctors who come and see me these days. Honestly, true. But anyway, for the talk this evening, I hadn't got a clue what I was going to talk about. Sometimes people send emails with subjects, but sometimes it doesn't really fit the Friday night talk. But I was thinking of some of the talks which I've given in the past. I once gave a talk on Buddhism and coffins, Buddhism and bananas. And so for this evening, I thought, because I had a cup of tea in my hand, this evening's talk is titled Buddhism and Tea. Because there's lots of very deep things about tea, especially in a big cup. First of all, it's got a great historic connection with Buddhism. You may not know that according to the myths, it's a nice myth, there was this Indian teacher called Bodhidharma who took Buddhism to China, and he was meditating one day and getting really sleepy, and he decided to, so he didn't get to sleep, to cut off his eyelids so they wouldn't droop. Those monks were tough in those days. They don't make monks like that these days. And apparently where his eyelids fell, there from the eyelids grew the first tea bush, which overcomes your sleepiness, because that's what he did. Cut off his eyes so he wouldn't be sleepy. That may be a myth, but if you read like Buddhist mythology, they say that's where it came from. And it certainly was taken up by the Buddhist monks in China and then Japan. It became so part of Buddhism that you have things like the Japanese tea ceremony. Because I just did a wedding today and it reminded me just of the tea ceremony. But that tea has gone all over to the world. And sometimes I just look at the Buddhism and tea and just realize that a lot of times it wasn't just the drinking the tea, it was just taking time out from the busyness of your life to have the cup of tea. Because in Buddhist practice, there's a lot of ceremonies involved with tea. I've done the Japanese tea ceremony when I've gone over to these big conferences over in Japan, and they've done all this for me. But that tea ceremony which you have over there, the main thing is for you really to be aware of what you're doing, to take the time out to really taste the tea and to drink it with awareness. It was a little meditation, a way of stopping, just to stop for a cup of tea. And I noticed that my ancestors, because I was born in England, when I was born, United Kingdom was still a world power. But then, these days, it's gone down in the rankings, both economically and power, and also even culturally. And I wondered why. What was the decline of the British Empire? And I really think it was when they stopped banning the morning tea break and the afternoon tea break. And they had to work right throughout the morning and the afternoon. No, honestly, because having a tea break, not just having a cup of coffee next to your computer, but having a real break like they used to have, meant you took time out from work and had a rest. A lot of times people think that's being lazy, but instead of being lazy, I understand as a meditator, it's actually taking time out to re-energize your mind, to recalibrate it, so after the tea break it's bright and productive. It's the essence of that little story which I have told many, many times. And I love this when I invent a story or a little practice and I go to some conference, or in this particular case there was a Thai ceremony over in, I think, Supreme Court Gardens, or next to there, Langley Park. And we had the local MP for Perth, Elena Evangeli or somebody, and she came up to give a speech. And she said that she heard a wise man say that stress has got nothing to do with how much work you have. No more than holding a cup of tea makes your arm tired. It only gets tired because you don't know how to put the cup down when you are tired to rest. And you know where that one came from. That's a classic Ajahn Brahm. And I love it when it goes round and round and round, and you get the local MP from Perth teaching it to me. But it is a great story if you haven't heard it before. You know, how heavy is a cup of tea? The longer you hold it, the heavier it feels. After 1 minute, if this was full of tea, after 1 minute my arm would be tired. After 2 minutes I'd be in pain. After 3 minutes I'd be in agony and a very stupid muck. What do you do when it gets too heavy to bear comfortably? You just put it down for 30 seconds. And because like all these teachings of Buddhism, they're practical. They're there for you to discover for yourself. So if you don't believe me, try this out at home. Hold a cup of tea for 3 minutes and then put it down for 30 seconds and then pick it up again. It feels lighter. And it's easy to carry without pain. Why? Because you have rested. The trouble with modern people, they don't know how to rest, or they're scared to rest. They think they're wasting time when they rest, which means they keep carrying the cup all day long without putting it down. Their productivity goes down, they ache, they're stressed out, they go home and they argue with their loved ones simply because they're tired. They get sicknesses because they're stressed out. They don't know how to work efficiently. So in those old days in England, in the time of the British Empire, when the sun never set on the British Empire, it was all because the tea breaks in the morning and in the afternoon. To be able to rest in the morning meant, it's 1 or 2 hours of work, had a break, put the cup down, relax, and afterwards your brain would be re-energized. Now quite frankly, before the meditation today, I was exhausted. All these things I had to do today. And I thought, crikey, how can I give a talk today? I've got no energy left. But a little bit of meditation, putting down all the worries and concerns, and you've got energy again now. So that is not the tea so much as the taking time out to enjoy the tea. That is the main message in life. And if you can learn how to do that, learn how to take a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, orange juice, carrot juice, whatever you like, and enjoy it. Not do the work while you're having the tea, but have the break. That is the trick to being more productive. Less stress, getting more done in less time. I've been teaching that for such a long time now, and it works. That's how I get a lot done. I'm a high achiever monk. I am. I do lots of stuff. And that's the first little lesson with cups of tea. And the other is the whole idea of stopping what you're doing, relaxing and letting go, and just reassessing, or sometimes allowing things to change. Because I have another really wonderful story about tea, which I told to somebody just yesterday. Many people come to monastery for free counseling, and they do that because it's high quality and low price. It's true. And so a person, they were having trouble with their business, it looked like it's going to go bankrupt, and they were suicidal and wondered what to do. And it reminded me of a story of a teacher, school teacher, who I was with when I was a teacher for 1 year in a high school in Devon. That's UK. And this story is a beautiful story, which I put in the first book, Opening the Door of Your Heart, because it applies to everybody's life. Sooner or later, you'll be in trouble. And when you're in trouble, it may be a cancer, it may be your business, it may be your marriage is on the rocks and you're thinking of divorce, separation, and all these other troubles which you have in your life. and how to deal with them. And this story is so beautiful that it was actually in the editorial of a Thai newspaper when they had the problems with the red shirts and the yellow shirts in Thailand, when people couldn't find a solution to the difficulties there. And they quoted this story from my book. It was well known in Thailand. Because this man, he was an elderly English teacher, when I was just a young guy just starting teaching. And he told me one day of a story for when he was in the British Army during the Second World War. He was in Burma. And he was just a volunteer. He wasn't really a violent man, but everybody had to join up in those days. And so there he was, sent to Burma, fighting in the jungles. And this one day he was on a patrol with about 6 other soldiers. And they had a scout who came back to the other soldiers and told them this terrible, terrible news. They had wandered into a huge number of Japanese soldiers. They were completely surrounded and heavily outnumbered in the jungles of Burma in the Second World War. And he thought that was the end of him. This was war, it's not games. And he was heavily outnumbered, there was no way out, completely surrounded. But you may have heard from people in the military that no one ever knows who will be the hero and who will be the coward. Sometimes these big tough guys, they break down when they're facing death. And some of these little guys, these namby-pambies, they rise to the occasion and become the heroes. Especially the bald-headed ones, small guys, fat guys like Bruce Willis. We are the heroes. No, I'm only joking there. But this fellow, he decided to be the hero. He said, let's fight our way out. Let's at least, we may not all be able to escape, but maybe, who knows, one of us might. There's no harm trying if we're going to die anyway. And anyway, that's what we should do. It's patriotic to take some of the enemy with us into death. Let's fight our way out, he suggested. But his captain, the commanding officer, said, no, we won't fight our way out. I have another idea. And this is when the captain gave the order to these group of soldiers surrounded by the enemy, about to die in war. He said, I order you all to sit down and have a cup of tea. They were all ordered to have a cup of tea. It was the British Army, after all. And he told me, laughing, he said he couldn't understand just that order from his commanding officer. Having a cup of tea when you're in the jungle, at war, about to die, that's the craziest thing he'd ever heard in his life. He thought maybe the captain had dengue fever or malaria or the sun had got to him or something. But in war, in the army, you have to follow orders. You've got no choice. So even though he thought it was the maddest thing he'd ever done in his life, he sat down and with the other soldiers started to make a cup of tea. And in the 5 or 10 minutes it took to make that tea, the scout came back and said, put all the stuff away quickly. The enemy has moved. There's a way through. And of course they all crawled through that gap in the enemy forces, which is why he could tell me the story many years later. He said he owed his life to the wisdom of that captain. He was about to try and fight his way through. He'd have died. But instead the captain said, no, stop, relax, have a cup of tea and wait. Because life is always changing. Soldiers are always moving. Life is always in flux. So when there's nothing to do, when there's death all around and there's no escape, there's no hope, there's no way out of these terrible predicaments human beings get themselves into, instead of trying to fight your way out, which means you'll die, sit down and have a cup of tea. And that's what the journalist in his best-selling paper in Bangkok asked everybody to do during the yellow shirt, red shirt riots. Wait, because things will always change. And this man also said it wasn't just in war that his life was saved, because he said he had a couple of other incidents in his life. Once when he was bankrupt, his business failed, and the banks and creditors wanted his house and his assets and everything else. And he remembered the advice of his captain during the Second World War. It was like he was surrounded by the enemy, around creditors, debtors, whatever it was, banks, on all sides, and there was no way out. So what he did? Sit down and have a cup of tea and rest. And things did change. He found options, a ways out. How many times is it in business, in life, we think it's impossible? We can't see any possibility of escape from the difficulties we have. And a lot of times we fight, we sort of struggle, we worry ourselves sick, so when an opportunity does come, we can't take it. The same when he had cancer as well, which was also supposed to be terminal. I don't know about you, but I've lived such a long life. I've known many people with terminal cancer still alive today. One of the great monks I respected enormously, he had terminal cancer when I first went to Thailand as a monk. Any Thai people here, his name was Ajahn Tate. Really great monk, one of the kindest monks I've ever met. And he had terminal cancer in Bangkok, in the big hospital there, getting the very, very, very best treatment. And the doctor said, nothing we can do for you. You know, there's no more treatments, you're going to die. And he said, well, I might as well die in my monastery up on the Mekong River in the north of Thailand. And it was about 25 years later he died. Not of the cancer, but of other things. And so sometimes the doctors don't know everything. In fact, they know very little. And scientists know very little. I was a scientist myself. And as human beings, we know very little. So don't allow that little knowledge to control your life. You know, if there's nothing to do, like he was told he had terminal cancer, he sat down, had a cup of tea. He never worried. He relaxed himself. And anyway, tea is good for cancer. Honestly, because I read in the newspaper, or somebody told me, that it's actually the T cells which actually attack the cancers. Okay, I know, it's not, the T cells don't come from tea, but sounds the same. There's antioxidants in it, but the main thing is that you're relaxing and resting and not worrying. Now that's one of the great things with the Buddhist tea ceremony. It was learning how to relax, to come into the present moment, with a nice cup of tea or coffee, whatever else you like, to enjoy it, relax, don't do anything, so you can take time out. And especially when you're in great difficulties. Because you find relaxing does create more options. You do see different ways of doing things. You do see other options, other possibilities which you never saw before. And anyway, the world is always moving. The things are always changing. You're waiting for the time. And then when there is that time, you can take it, you escape. And you have a wonderful life. But so many people make the mistake, when there's nothing to do, they start fighting and struggling. When the going gets tough, they say, the tough get going. That's a stupid statement. When the going gets tough, the wise sit down and have a cup of tea. That's Buddhism. And that's very powerful. So, the couple of stories, just the little things about tea, it actually really helps you, in your life. Become mindful, become aware, let go, be in this moment, learn how to relax. It actually does do something for you, as well as giving a little boost of energy anyway. That's also very, very helpful. And perhaps that's why I went to stay with a monk called Ajahn Chah. Because cha is the Indian word for tea. Anyone who is called Ajahn Tea must be the monk for the Englishman. But of course, you could have your cup of tea and a little bit having a rest, because sometimes in life we go on and on and on and on without to relax, without stopping. The whole point of meditation is learning how to stop, make peace, just relax a little bit, to stop all of the journeys of life and just have a pause. And sometimes learning to let go, learning just to be, learning to stop running for the next thing is a difficult thing for us to learn. So learning just to have a cup of tea, or any other thing you can do so you can just stop in your life. Have periods where you can pause. You press the pause button in all the running around for things you have to do. But of course it's very difficult to press that pause button because we always have so much unfinished business. In fact, just giving the funeral this afternoon, there is so much unfinished business when a person dies. They're too young, they're having a good time, they're having a good business. Why should they die now? Have you noticed that doesn't matter even if you are told you've got so many years to live, still you never get all of your things in order before you die? Or can you? Can you get all your things in order right now, in this moment, so you can really find some peace in your life? There is a method, there is a way. And this is again one of the great stories of how to find peace in the busyness of our modern life. And that is the story of this, again, a Thai monk, Buddhadasa. He died a long time ago. But the story goes, a very famous story, that he was building his main hall in his temple in Thailand, in southern Thailand. The big hall building, like if you go and see the nuns' monastery at Gijigana, they're doing all their building over there now. And whenever you do building, it's really hard work and a lot of noise and a lot of stuff which the monks and nuns have to worry about and make sure everything is done well, because sometimes builders think, oh, these monks and nuns are soft, and so they try and get away with anything. Even though we explain to the builders it's bad karma to cheat a monk, that doesn't really work to Australian business. So sometimes we have to be tough. But he was doing his building, and it came to what we call our rains retreat. The rains retreat, which we have from July to October. Those of you who've been here a while know that. That's when the monks and nuns, we disappear from here. We don't come to this place for 3 months. It's a time when we can all just relax, rest, and really get into our meditation. I do travel around a lot, working very hard, but the rains retreat, I stop too. So it's about to come to the rains retreat, so he told all the builders to go home, come back in 3 months. It doesn't really matter when things are completed, you can just wait for a little bit longer, it doesn't have to be done yesterday. People are just always, it's just such a rush. But as monks we're supposed to be teaching by example, not just teaching over here and then doing something opposite afterwards. So he turned all the builders back home, and a couple of days later this man came into the temple and just asked him, when is your temple going to be finished? And the monk said, it is finished. At which the visitor said, what? Are you going to leave it like this? Are you going to leave it with no roof on, no glass in the windows and bits of wood and cement bags all over the floor? Are you going to leave it like that? What do you mean it's finished? And with great wisdom, and I always remember this in my life, and I share it with you, because this is wisdom. It works. He replied, sir, what's done is finished. And then he went back to meditate. What a beautiful attitude that is in your life. Otherwise, life is never finished. Have you finished all of your jobs this week? This weekend, Saturday and Sunday, are you going to finish all your jobs? Are you going to get all those things on your list ticked off? The answer is no. There's no way that you're going to finish all of those unless you have the right attitude. And the right attitude is, what's done is finished. So now you can have a rest and relax and let go and have some peace in your life. Now the trouble with that is that many, many, many years ago when I first told that story, I got into big trouble. because there was a couple of young kids, about 17, 18-year-old kids. They came with their parents, to listen to my talk. And then when it came to Saturday night, one of the children said, Mom, Dad, I'm going to the club now, going to the party. And the dad said, oh, what about what you promised, that you'll finish your homework before you go out? Have you finished your homework, son? And you know what happened? The son replied, Dad, just like Ajahn Brahm said, what's done is finished, see you tomorrow. I got into trouble for that. But it's true, you get your homework done later on, get all these other jobs done later on. Is that what your life is all about, getting everything finished? In other words, working. If you are, you're going to just be a real mess. You're going to be unhealthy, you're going to be a pain to other people, you're going to be a pain to yourself, never knowing any peace at life, because there's always stuff to get done, finished, out of the way. So I love that little story. I remember that. Take time. Instead of you finished all your jobs, what's done is finished. Now I'm going to take a rest. It's important for you to take that cup of tea. Because tea also stands for time. And people are just such prisoners of time. They just do not know how to understand this thing called time. We create our past. And I say we create our past very carefully, because I know psychology, I've read the manuals and the evidence. It's amazing how what you think happened probably never did happen at all. There was a great little paper which was written by a psychologist in Canada who was just retiring after many years in that profession. And as he was cleaning out all of his old things, about to retire, he came across one of the very early little papers he had written for a journal. He had, 40 years earlier, he'd interviewed school children in the United States. He interviewed them about the nature of their family life. Little questions like, do you get on with your mother better than your father, or the other way around? Does your parents give you pocket money? Does your parents discipline you? How do they discipline you? All like questions which, he had the answers from all these kids about 30, 40 years ago. And he decided to try and find as many of those students as he could, now in their 50s and 60s. And to ask them the same questions and compare their answers. When you were a child, did you get on with your mother more than a father, or father more than a mother? How did your parents discipline you? Did you have to do homework? Did they give you pocket money? And compare the answers. He had the evidence from that long ago. He wanted to see whether their memory of their childhood was the same as what they said their childhood was at the time. And he published the paper because what they thought happened was in so many cases totally opposite from what they said happened at the time. Their memories had totally changed the reality of their past. And as many people know, what actually happened in your past probably didn't happen that way. You have changed it. And the way it changes with memory of the past, it can be best described with that old game I used to play at school, which you probably know as well, called Chinese Whispers. All the kids, they stand in line, and the teacher whispers something to the first kid. You whisper it to the next one, who whispers it to the next one, who whispers it to the next one. And when it gets to the end, it becomes totally different than what was said at first. And that's a very good description of how memory works. And the story which I always recall was where this happened in real life and caused a big problem. It was during this time, the First World War. In military they have a chain of command. And so it was the general who gave the order, send reinforcements, we're going to advance. And he's told that to this deputy who told it to the colonel, who told it to the major, who told it to the lieutenant, who told it to the captain, who told it to the sergeant, who told it to the corporal, who told it to the privates. And every time that order went down, it changed a little bit. And when actually the privates heard this, what they heard, and this was apparently a true story, instead of send reinforcements, we're going to advance, they heard send 3 and 4 pence, the old English money, we're going to a dance. And that actually happened. And it actually shows sometimes just how our memories, because the way your memory is, you remember the last time you remembered it. And so when you look so far in the past, you remember the last time you remembered, the last time you remembered, the last time you remembered. And every time you remember something, it changes just a tiny bit, which means the further those memories are in the past, the more unreliable they are. Now that is psychological truth. And that is also why sometimes you can argue with your brothers and sisters. You grew up in the same house together. You experience the same events together, but you argue of, what happened. And it is because your memory has always been changed. And I mention that because sometimes when we trust our memories of the past, we can argue, we can suffer, we can't let it go because we think that's real. Much of what you remember actually never happened. You may not believe that, but that is actually true. And what you think happened, you can't rely upon. Because of that, it's wonderful to let it all go. To let it go so much because so long ago, unreliable. And when you can let it go, and you're not a prisoner of the past. There are so many people prisoners of the past, we call them victims. And you know that victim, you only have to change the last 2 letters, which is I am, into or, give it an alternative. And the victim becomes victor. Change the I am to an alternative to or, and it becomes victor. And you can do that. So when we become a victim, we look at the past with negativity a lot. And we can't really do much with it, we can't change it. We can let it go though, and become free of time. The same as the future. Sometimes when I looked at my schedule this afternoon, it was horrendous. Just ever since this morning, just non-stop going. And how can you be energetic and creative enough to give a talk on a Friday night? And all you people coming here and all the people listening online, how can you do that? And I realize this a lot, if I think about what I'm going to do, if I look into the future and my schedule, it's impossible. It's worrying about the future is what takes away the energy from the present moment. What a stupid thing that is to do. I know I need all my energy right now. I needed it at the funeral service. There's a person who passed away, and it was very, very sensitive to make sure you do the very, very best to try and help people out of their grief. So actually to give the death a meaning, to realize you can never measure a person by the way they died, only by the way they lived. And to realize that celebration of a human life, we always say that in Australia. How do we do that? We do that by focusing on the beautiful things which you shared with that person, or the wonderful laughter, the crazy times you share together, and realizing that that is a person, not the old body lying in the coffin. The person is the love and the time you share together. And of course that is something which doesn't die. So if you focus on that, then there's no grief anymore. Then there's only the wonderful feeling of being privileged to have been there at the time and enjoy those wonderful memories with someone who's no longer here. The memories are what make the person, not the body, and not the end of a body called death. That's just like the car. You're not your car. There's no one here who's a BMW. We saw a Ferrari today. I thought it was a car which had been stamped on by an elephant. It was so flat. But, the person driving is not a Ferrari, they're just a person. So the person and the car, the driver and the car are different. So the body and the person are totally different. And it's a person. The joy, the happiness, the times you spend together, that's the most important. So if you understand what reality is, that's not something which lives in the past, that lives in the present moment, in your heart. The beautiful joy and happiness you have because of the time you spend together. So this is how not to be a prisoner of the time. And of course, for the future, we worry so much about stupid things which hardly ever happen at all. And in fact, I always know that the only time we ever have, the only time is just right now. And even though I travel around a lot, I never travel anywhere. Every time I sit in an aircraft, I sit still. The aircraft moves, not me. Isn't that the same in your life? The clock moves, but you don't move. You're always here. You were born right here. And you are here now. Tomorrow morning you'll be here again. So this idea of time is you can look at it in a different way and then be free of time. So to be free of time, see if you can spend more time in this moment. Put more focus right here, right now. And it's a strange thing that people they think they have no time. They're so busy. But actually, you have all the time you ever need. But you're never here to enjoy it. It's when we're just worrying about the future, when we're dragged into the past, then we don't have any time. We're just full with all this other stuff. So try that. See, that's why one of the great joys of meditation. You're just sitting here, not doing anything. This is an important part for those who want to meditate and get success. Please don't try and get somewhere in meditation. Don't try and go places. You've been doing that all your life, trying to get somewhere, go somewhere, achieve something, get some certificate, get some... That's crazy stuff. I told this story to the monks last Wednesday night. As I heard this in San Francisco from a Sri Lankan man. I think I told this story a couple of weeks ago, but never mind, here it comes again. There was this woman, who went to Colombo in Sri Lanka, visiting her family and friends. And she came from a very remote village. But she was a very devout Buddhist, would go to the temple offering dharma, this is the food, to the monks, and doing all of this chanting and stuff. And what most people in Colombo thought was one of these superficial Buddhists, just into the rituals and the ceremonies, but never really getting into the heart, the deep part of Buddhism. But because she was an old lady and very sweet, they decided to sponsor her for this course which was being held in Colombo. And in this course they did meditation and then did studies on Buddhism. And at the end of the course they gave them a little examination, maybe just an interview to find out about how deep their meditation was and how much understanding of Buddhism they had attained. And they would give them certificates at the end. Especially some of them they thought had got one of the 4 stages of enlightenment. And for those of you who do not know the 4 stages of enlightenment, the first stage of enlightenment is called the stream winner, the second one is called the once returner, the third one is a non-returner, the fourth one is fully enlightened. The 4 stages of enlightenment which come one after the other. And they were giving out these certificates to everybody, say you're at the first stage, you're at the third stage, you're at the second stage. And after this woman had completed the course, they came up to her and said, we've all decided you've done really, really, really well. Congratulations, you've made the first stage of enlightenment. And you Sri Lankans here that's Sowan. They gave her a certificate to say that she was a Sowan, the first stage of enlightenment. And she got really angry. She got really upset. And they couldn't understand why. You got the first stage of enlightenment. That's a great achievement. That's wonderful. Why are you so upset? And then she told them, she said, you don't remember me, do you? I was here last year and you said I got onto the third stage of enlightenment. You've demoted me. They got closed down after that. It's just a fraud, because you don't meditate to get things. You meditate to be here, not to go someplace, because that's what we do all our lives, always going places. Going to the temple, going back home, going to the shops, going north, going south, anywhere but just being here. Because going places becomes a prisoner of time. You're never here, you're at some destination. Always a few minutes or hours ahead of yourself. So please, don't be a prisoner of the big T, time. See if you can just be here more and more and more in your life. And quite frankly, you do have a few plans in life, but you don't need that many plans in life. My saying is, and I notice this, if I don't make plans, like what I'm going to talk about or what I'm going to do tomorrow, if I don't make plans, things go wrong. You know that, if you don't make plans, things go wrong. But I've also noted, and this is really important, when I do make plans, they go wrong anyway. Either way, things go wrong. So I might as well enjoy it, not make plans, and enjoy it before it goes wrong. Isn't that true in life? So see if you can not plan so much, enjoy life more, and be free of time. People say they are time poor in this modern world. They've got lots of money. You have got more than you really need. You're going to, by more than you need, you're going to have to, people have been asking me, sort of, wills, executors. That means you've got too much money. Can't you just make it so just you run out of money, you spend all your superannuations and your savings just the day you die? Wouldn't that be just absolutely perfect? But because of fear, you keep too much. And then all these other people have to work out how they're going to distribute it with wills and stuff. It's all because of fear and too many plans. For me, be able to live in this present moment, enjoy the company of today. And tomorrow, let's see what happens. But I do know that tomorrow is made today. The way I look at my mind, treat my body, and treat my heart right now, that is called karma. And if I do this moment well, I know the law of karma, the result will be beautiful. That is what the law of karma means in Buddhism. Karma is what you do right now. The kindness, the peace, the beauty, the acceptance, the just being here, making peace, being kind, being gentle, right now. And the Buddha was saying, that is making good karma. That has results. That is how you create a beautiful future. It also means you're free of the prison of time. Always having so many things to do. Always having so much unfinished business from the past, which puts pressure on you, there's big burdens. You don't have to do that. You can live like a monk, like a nun. And don't think it's all right for you to say that, Ajahn Brahm. You don't know what it's like in the real world. When people say that, the real world, I very get upset. What do you guys mean, the real world? With all of your Botox, makeup, dyeing your hair, breast implants, deodorants, scents. That's not the real world. You live in the fake world. Monks, we don't dye our hair, we got no hair. We don't sort of have breast implants, at least the nuns don't. We don't have Botox. We are real. But The real world, we live in the real world as well. I do a huge amount of work without getting stressed. In a moment. You get far more done in your life if you can live in the present moment, much more. Basically, you're wasting too much time worrying about the future. You're wasting too much time thinking that your memories of the past are true when most of them are just false. Both are fantasies. Past and future is fantasies. The only real world is right now. That's why I say I live in the real world probably much more than anyone else in this room. So then you understand time. And you also understand the beginning of time, all this stuff about creation or the end of the world. So much fantasy stuff. There's only this moment right now. That's all there ever is. There's the only thing you can be sure of. And the only thing to do right now is to care, be kind, be compassionate, be peaceful. That is Buddhism in a nutshell. Time is just now. That is the big T. Buddhism and the big T. Thank you for listening. Sadhu, sadhu. Very good. Okay, I managed to get away with it again for another week. Not knowing at all what I was going to speak about, making up as I go along. So, any questions? First of all, from overseas. Any questions from the floor here? Yeah, in the back. Yes, Conrad. Can we get a microphone to Conrad? While the microphone's going over there, I'll do the first question from... Conrad, shout it out. What is a good?
What's some good point?
Oh, good pointers.
Good pointers when you're
from
speaking off the cuff.
Speaking off the cuff, like I usually do. Yeah. Well, how good pointers, because sometimes I don't know what I'm going to say. Buddhism and coffins, Buddhism and bananas, Buddhism and tea. What's a good pointer? Is again to number one, just relax, because when people get tense, they can't actually get ideas coming up. They can't be creative. And they can't actually basically be in this present moment and get ideas coming up for to keep so many people here in this hall for such a long time. So number one, relax. Number two, have fun. Having fun is one of the most important things in life. Because when we have fun, we put joy into what we're doing. Fun is one of the most important parts of creativity. It's almost like the soil from which creativity grows. Fun, play, seeing things in a different way, and just laughing at life. And that also gives you energy, and it also gives you confidence. Because for many people who do have to do public speaking, sometimes they have to make it fun. And like today at the funeral service, the marriage. I always get those mixed up. At the marriage, one of the people, they took one of my stories in their little speech. And the story that, when you are single, you're a person, a being with two legs. But when you're married, boy and girl come together, you're like an elephant with four legs. Okay, so you're joined together, and it's important that the front legs and the back legs go in the same direction. Because if the front legs go one way, the back legs go another way, the elephant falls down. It's really hard for an elephant to get up again. And so once you're married, you're a four-legged animal, not two-legged animal anymore. You've got to go together. And usually, the front foot of the elephant, the front two legs, that's the man. And the back two legs are the wife, the woman. Don't get upset yet. And he was telling this story because, the front two legs are supposed to be the man, because it was a Sri Lankan got married. The front two legs are the man, the back two legs are the woman. But in places like Sri Lanka, as you know, the elephant always walks backwards. So he told that story. When it's funny, it's easy to actually tell a story. because, you're having fun telling it. You know the punchline, you can't wait to tell it to others. So speaking off the cuff, make it fun, a few funny stories, joy, relaxation, and then you become creative. And then it works. So those two things, relaxation and fun. And please, whatever you do in life, make it fun. You always manage to have higher quality work done. Even just writing a letter. Put a few funny stories in there, funny jokes, whatever it is, and then the letter flows really quickly. Thank you for that. Here we go. A question from Sri Lanka. Oh, I'm in trouble now. Dear Ajahn, when I have loads of work to do, when I'm busy with my work, I really get angry with myself and others. If something goes wrong, I'm fed up with myself. What should I do? When you have loads of work to do, then take time off. Obvious. There is a person, this is a beautiful quote. He told me that he meditates 1 hour every day. 1 hour every day he meditates, except when he's busy. When he's busy, he meditates 2 hours a day. Now that's a beautiful saying, because he realizes if you've got lots of work to do, you have to have a very strong mind and be very efficient. You can't afford to make mistakes. So he does the extra bit of meditation, the extra rest, to give him more power to do more work in less time. That is the trick. Taking time off is giving you more energy. It's not wasting time, it's making time. That's why that little story I said about the cup of tea and how heavy it is. I told that in the World Computer Conference in Brisbane in a keynote address many years ago. It was so well regarded, it went into the Australian newspaper. And it was from there it went to Harvard Business School, where it's now taught in Harvard as an investment in the afternoon. It's business school, okay? Call it investment, and then people listen. So by taking half an hour of meditation, it's an investment. You get an hour's work back afterwards. You get 3 hours work done in 2 hours of high quality, because you've rested. So from Sri Lanka, if you've got loads of work to do, you have to be very efficient, which means whenever you see your mind getting tired, the efficiency of your brain going down, you have to stop and rest until the energy of your brain goes up again, because you've relaxed, you've rested, and then you can do more. That way you do not waste time. And you get really angry with yourself and others, of course, because you're frustrated, you're pushing too hard. Because this is what most people do when they have lots of work to do and no time to do it in. They push, 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 which means that they really get drained. Their resilience declines enormously, which means that small things will make them angry. If you had the same things happen to you on the weekend, you've had a nice relaxing time, the same things wouldn't make you angry anymore, because you're not so tired. Your brain is not so weak through so much work. So the meaning of this is, if you learn how to take time off to relax when you get tired, take the cup of tea in the morning, afternoon, whatever, you find you get more productivity. I was also going to tell the story that I studied in Cambridge and university, and they had the old Cavendish laboratories there, which are the physics place, and they had such incredible physicists in those days, but it was a rule. Every person working in that huge laboratory had to go to morning tea and afternoon tea as well. They had to, no choice. And on that, they took me inside, the tea place where all these great scientists made their brilliant discoveries. And on those tea places, all the tables were made out of formica, the old Laminex stuff, and they all had felt tip pens on there. And all these great scientists would actually have a cup of tea and a bun or a sausage roll or something, and they'd write all these incredible equations, about quasars, black holes, whatever it was, on these tables. Because of having a cup of tea, they were meeting one another. They were getting new ideas. They were cross-fertilizing. I was told, so many Nobel Prizes were gained in the tea room, of Cambridge University's Cavendish Laboratory, more than any other place. That's why it was compulsory. Doesn't matter who you were, every researcher had to have a cup of tea, because they knew that was where the great discoveries were made. And all these people just write. I always thought, what about the tea ladies? They were probably Russian spies. I had that sort of mind. And that's when things go wrong. You're fed up with yourself, you blame yourself. It's mostly because you've lost your resilience from Sri Lanka. Because you're working so hard, your brain gets so weak, you get angry at others and angry at yourself. So please learn how to take time off. You may take time off, you'll have more time. From Germany, when I'm meditating, the stress of my life disappears. Woohoo! And when I come out of meditation, the stress returns and it affects me more than before the meditation. Could you please give me advice? Yeah, just carry on meditating and don't come out. They did not have any stress at all. Now, first of all, I would actually say for the person from Germany, what type of meditation do you do? Because there are some types of Buddhist meditation where they put you work. You've got to watch your breath, you've got to scan your body, you've got to do stuff. And to me that is crazy meditation, but still many people teach that. If you did a meditation from Germany, which I taught here, just being in the present moment, relaxing your body, relaxing your mind, letting things be, then when you come out of meditation, the stress doesn't affect you. You've got energy. The old story when I did my final examinations at Cambridge, really heavy stress, 3-hour paper in the morning, 3-hour in the afternoon, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday, in a row. I never had lunch. I went to my room and I just meditated for half an hour, every lunch hour. Totally relaxed from all the pressure of final examinations. I often tell people that it was high stress because I really thought it was important to do well. If only I had known I was going to become a monk. I wouldn't have needed to work so hard. But I never knew that. So anyway, working really hard. But I learned how to totally let go at lunch hour. Half an hour of total relaxation. And afterwards I did really well in the afternoon. And that was the first time I realized that is how to overcome stress. And the meditation was letting go of past, letting go of future, just relaxing the body, relaxing the mind. So I think it's a type of meditation, person from Germany, you're doing. Because if the stress returns after meditation, there's something wrong with the meditation there. Lastly, from London, what is the Buddhist view on regrets? How do we get past regrets in life from tormenting us? When you look at the past with regret, you think, oh, if only I'd done something else, it might have been better. How do you know it could have been better? If you hadn't married the woman you did marry, but you married somebody else, would it have been better? You probably would have been worse, knowing your luck. If I hadn't got this job and got another job, would it have been better? I made the wrong choices. The thing is, once you made a choice, there's no way of knowing what would have happened if you had the other choice. So when I do that, I think, crikey, I can't make regrets. There's no way you can have regrets. That makes no sense to me. What are you regretting? If I hadn't made that decision, my decision may have hurt a few people, may have hurt myself, but if I made another decision, it could have been much worse. So how do you know? Because of that, have no regrets. Okay, I'm going to tell this last joke. I'm pushing my luck here this evening, but I got this joke from one of the people in the back. Oh, they've already gone, thank goodness. There was a policeman, a traffic cop, comes to a person's house, knocks on the door, and this is a middle-aged man answers, and the traffic cop says, what's your name? And he tells his name and said, oh yes, it's you. And he holds up a photo and he said, is this your wife? He said, yeah, that's my wife. The traffic cop says, I'm terribly sorry to tell you, but it looks like your wife has been hit by a truck. And the husband said, no, that's what she looked like when I married her. Okay, that's enough for this evening. Thank you very much. When I'm tired, I lose all my inhibitions. I should have told that. I apologise. We're going to get some emails, I'm sure. So thank you all for listening today. Now you can pay respects to the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. Well, actually, I've got no regrets from telling that silly joke. Arahang Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddha Bhagavanta Abhivatemi Suakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami.